Her child needed emergency blood. The only match was the billionaire CEO who abandoned her. "Oh, negative," the doctor said. And in that moment, I had two choices. Call the man who abandoned me 15 years ago and tell him the daughter he never knew existed was dying, or let my pride kill her. His name appeared on the screen. Frederick Chrisman. Billionaire CEO. The man I'd seen buying baby clothes last month. The man I thought had moved on and built the family he refused to have with me. But I was wrong about everything. And now, with 20 minutes before her organs started failing, I had to decide. Would I give him the truth I'd buried? Or would I bury our daughter instead? The first thing the doctor said wasn't my name. It was a blood type. "Oh, negative," he said, his voice steady in that awful, trained way doctors use when they're about to rip your world in half. "Your daughter needs an immediate transfusion. Without it—" He paused. "Not for drama, for mercy. We're running out of time." I was gripping the steel rail of Mary's hospital bed so hard my knuckles had gone white. My 15-year-old daughter lay in front of me, impossibly small beneath sheets that smelled like bleach and terror. Tubes snaking out of her arms, machines beeping where her voice should have been. My baby. My whole life. Mary had been in a car accident 3 hours earlier. A drunk driver ran a red light while she was walking home from school. Internal bleeding, ruptured spleen, emergency surgery. She'd lost so much blood that her body was shutting down. The doctors had been transfusing her with standard O negative from the hospital bank, but her body was rejecting it. Something about her blood chemistry, a rare antibody marker, meant she needed an exact match. Not just O negative, but O negative with a specific protein sequence that only appeared in 0.02% of the population. They'd run every database, local, state, national. One match. Frederick Chrisman. "Take mine," I said. My voice came out stronger than I felt. "I'm her mother. Take mine." The doctor shook his head. Gently, like he'd done this before. "We tested you already, Mrs. Baker. You're not a match." The floor tilted. You know that moment when you realize you can't fix something? When all the love in your heart, all the years you spent protecting someone, all the sleepless nights and sacrifices, none of it matters because you just can't help? If you've ever felt that kind of helplessness, you're not alone here. Hit that subscribe button, because the women in this space, we understand what it means to fight when the world says you're not enough. I heard myself say something. Maybe I asked him to test me again. Maybe I begged. The room had started to blur at the edges, the fluorescent lights too bright, the antiseptic smell choking me. The hospital room smelled like industrial cleaning solution trying to mask something organic and wrong. They tested me again. Then again. Nothing. Minutes collapsed into one long, suffocating stretch where I stood there, useless, while my daughter's chest rose and fell in shallow, stubborn little breaths. She'd inherited that stubbornness from me. I used to be proud of it. Now I was just terrified it wouldn't be enough. The doctor returned. His face was unreadable, and that should have been my first warning. "There is one match," he said. Hope slammed into me so hard I had to steady myself against the bed. "Who?" I whispered. He hesitated. And that hesitation? Pay attention to this. Because in that one moment of silence, my entire past came flooding back. A man named Frederick Chrisman. The air left the room. Frederick. The name I hadn't spoken out loud in 15 years. The name I'd buried so deep I almost convinced myself it didn't matter anymore. But it mattered now. Frederick Chrisman. Billionaire CEO. Magazine covers. Philanthropy galas. Private jets and power suits, and a life built on ambition so sharp it cut through everything soft in its path. Including me. Including us. He was the man who walked away the moment I told him I was pregnant. The man who said, "This isn't the right time for Virginia," like our child was a business deal he could postpone. The man who had no idea Mary even existed. And now, the only man who could save her. Now here's what you need to understand. Some of you watching this right now have made hard choices to protect the people you love. Choices nobody else understood. Choices you questioned every single day. If that's you, leave a comment. Tell me what you protected. Because silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the strongest thing we know how to do, and I want you to know, I see you. I stood there, frozen, staring at the doctor like he'd just told me the only cure was poison. "Ma'am," he said gently, "we need to make the call. Now." I looked down at Mary. Her eyelids fluttered. Somewhere beneath the sedation, she was still fighting. She'd been fighting her whole life. Fighting through every cold I couldn't afford to take off work for. Fighting through every birthday party where other kids had two parents and she only had me. Fighting through every school form that asked for father's name, and I wrote unknown because I refused to give her a ghost. She fought because I taught her to. Mary was a fighter in other ways too. Soccer midfielder, straight-A student, the kind of kid who refused to quit even when she was exhausted. She got that from me. But the way she calculated plays on the field, 3 moves ahead, that was something else. Something I didn't give her. Something that came from him. But this was a fight she couldn't win alone. And what happened next would change everything. Not just for her, for all 3 of us. I closed my eyes. 15 years ago, I made a choice. I chose to protect her from rejection, from disappointment, from a father who didn't want to be one. I chose silence. And silence had kept us safe, but silence couldn't save her now. "Make the call," I said. The words tasted like surrender. "Let me ask you something. What would you have done? If the only person who could save your child was the person who broke your heart, would you call? Would you forgive? Would you let them back in?" Drop a like if you would have made the call. Because sometimes the hardest choices are the right ones. And I need to know I'm not the only woman who's ever had to choose between pride and survival. The hospital administrator made the call from a small office down the hall. I couldn't sit. Couldn't stand still. I paced that narrow space like a caged thing, my arms wrapped around myself, praying to every god I'd stopped believing in years ago. Please, please let him answer. Please let him say yes. I hated that I was praying for him. Hated that after everything, after the abandonment, after the checks he sent to clear his conscience, after 15 years of doing this alone, I still needed him. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who refused to be there for the beginning might be the only reason there'd be a future. 20 minutes later, the door opened, and Frederick Chrisman walked into my life for the second time. He looked older, sharper, the kind of man who'd been sculpted by success and pressure and 1,000 decisions that didn't include me. His suit was charcoal gray, expensive, tailored to perfection. Even his shoes looked like they cost more than my rent. He didn't belong in a pediatric ward. He didn't belong here, but here he was. His eyes found mine across the room. And for just a second I saw the man I used to know, before the billions, before the empire, back when he was just Frederick, and I was just Virginia, and we thought love was enough. We were wrong. "Virginia?" he said softly, like my name was a memory he wasn't sure he was allowed to keep. I stood. My legs felt weak, but I forced them steady. I wouldn't fall apart. Not now. Not in front of him. "You're the only match," I said. No greeting, no small talk, just the truth. "My daughter will die without you." He blinked, once, slowly. "Your..." His voice faltered. "Your daughter?" I swallowed hard. The lie I'd lived for 15 years was about to shatter in a hospital hallway that smelled like disinfectant and desperation. "Ours," I said. "Take a breath." Because this moment right here, this is what happens when the past you buried comes back demanding to be seen. If this story is hitting you somewhere deep, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like this, stories about women who survived, who protected, who chose their children over everything else, these stories matter. And they need to be told. The silence that followed was so thick I could feel it pressing against my ribs. His face went pale. Not shock. Something deeper. Something that looked like grief and regret and 15 years of wondering what if. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I know," I said. My voice didn't shake. I wouldn't let it. That was the point. He stared at me, then at the floor, then at his hands, like they belonged to someone else. How old? He asked. 15. He closed his eyes. His jaw tightened. I watched him do the math. Watched him realize that the same month he signed his first major deal, I was giving birth alone. The same year he made his first million, she was learning to walk. The same year Forbes called him the CEO to watch, she asked me why she didn't have a daddy like the other kids. For a moment, I thought he might leave. Walk back out that door the same way he walked out of my apartment all those years ago, his coat still on, his mind already made up. But he didn't. I'll do it, he said. Whatever she needs, I'll do it. No lawyers, no conditions, no questions about why I never told him, just yes. And that scared me more than anything. Now listen closely because what happens next is going to surprise you. Frederick didn't just agree to the transfusion. What he did after, what he said when he finally saw her, that's coming. And trust me, you're going to want to hear it. So stay with me, because this story isn't about what you think it's about. The doctor appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand, all efficiency and urgency. We need to prep you immediately, Mr. Chrisman. Time is critical. Frederick nodded. He started to follow, then stopped. He turned back to me. Can I? His voice cracked, and I'd never heard Frederick Chrisman's voice crack. Not once in all the years I knew him. Can I see her? After? I wanted to say no. Wanted to tell him he'd lost that right a long time ago. That you don't get to walk away from a pregnancy and walk into a child's life 15 years later just because you donated blood. But I looked at his face. Really looked. And for the first time since he'd arrived, I saw something I hadn't expected. Fear, not for himself, for her. We'll see, I said. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. And right now, that was all I could give him. If you've ever had to let someone back in after they hurt you, not because you wanted to, but because life gave you no choice, drop a comment. Tell me how you survived it, because that's what we do here. We share the hard parts, the messy parts, the parts nobody else wants to talk about. And if you're new here, subscribe. Because you just found a community that gets it. They wheeled him down the hall. I watched his back disappear through double doors that swung shut with a soft hiss. And then I was alone again. Just like I'd been for 15 years. I sank into a plastic chair outside Mary's room, my hands shaking now that no one was watching. The adrenaline was wearing off, and in its place came a flood of questions I didn't have answers to. What if the transfusion didn't work? What if it did, and Frederick wanted to be involved? What if Mary hated me for keeping the truth from her? What if she loved him more than she loved me? That last thought hit like a knife. I'd given her everything, every piece of myself, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dream I'd put aside so she could have hers, and he'd given her nothing. But now he was giving her life. And I didn't know which one of us she'd remember for that. What happens when the transfusion is over? When Frederick asks to meet the daughter he never knew existed? When Mary learns the truth about the father I never told her about? That's next. And it's going to break your heart and put it back together in ways you're not expecting. So don't go anywhere. Because this story, we're just getting started. I sat there holding Mary's hand, listening to the rhythm of machines doing the breathing she couldn't quite manage on her own. And as the minutes crawled by, waiting for them to prep Frederick for the transfusion, my mind did what it always does when I'm powerless. It went back. Back to the night I told him. Back to the moment everything changed. 15 years earlier, I was 26 years old, standing in my tiny apartment with a pregnancy test in my shaking hands and a man I loved pacing in front of me like the walls were closing in. It was raining. I remember that. The kind of rain that drums against windows and makes you feel like the whole world is crying with you. Virginia, Frederick ran his hands through his hair. He did that when he was stressed. This isn't the right time. There's never a right time, I said quietly. He stopped pacing, looked at me, and I saw it in his eyes before he even said the words. Fear. Not of me, not of the baby, of losing what he'd worked for. The company is about to explode, he said. Investors are watching my every move. One wrong step and what? I asked. I'm the wrong step? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Frederick? He stood there, silent. And that silence told me everything. If you've ever stood in front of someone you loved and watched them choose something else, you know this pain. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. It's the sound of your heart realizing you were never the priority you thought you were. If you've been there, you understand Virginia. And if this story is hitting you where it hurts, hit that subscribe button. Because you deserve to see how this ends. You've earned it. I'll support you financially, he said finally. I'll make sure you have everything you need, but I can't be a father, I finished for him. He flinched, but he didn't deny it. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make him feel even a fraction of what I was feeling. But I didn't. Because here's what I learned that night. You can't make someone want to stay. You can't convince someone to love what they're not ready to love. And you can't build a family on guilt. Okay, I said. He looked surprised, like he'd expected a fight. Okay, he repeated. You don't want to be part of this, I said. So don't be. He left that night. Wired money to my account a week later, enough to cover hospital bills and more. But he never called. Never asked how I was. Never asked about the baby. And I told myself that was fine, that I didn't need him, that we'd be better off without someone who could walk away that easily. But late at night, when the baby kicked and I had no one to share it with, I wasn't so sure. Raising a child alone is one of the hardest things a woman can do. And if you did it, if you're doing it right now, leave a comment and let me know, because you're not invisible. Your strength matters. And I see you. This community sees you. That's what we're building here. A place where women like Virginia, women like us, finally get to be heard. The pregnancy wasn't easy. At 6 months, I started bleeding. Rushed to the emergency room alone, terrified I was losing her. The doctors managed to stop it, put me on bed rest, told me to avoid stress. Avoid stress. I almost laughed. I was working 2 jobs, living paycheck to paycheck, trying to prepare for a baby I had no idea how to raise by myself. Stress was all I had, but I survived. Because that's what you do when there's no other option. Mary was born on a Tuesday morning in March, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, screaming like she was furious at the world for making her wait so long to get here. The nurse placed her on my chest, and I looked down at this tiny, red-faced, perfect little stranger, and I cried. Not because I was happy, not because I was sad, but because I finally understood what it meant to love someone more than your own life. What's her name? The nurse asked gently. I looked at Mary's face, at the way her tiny fist curled against my skin, at the way she stopped crying the moment she heard my heartbeat. Mary, I said, after my grandmother. The woman who raised me when my own mother couldn't. The woman who taught me that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about getting back up when you do. Mary opened her eyes. Just for a second, and I made her a promise right there. I will never let anyone make you feel unwanted, I whispered. Not even your father. Here's what I wish someone had told me back then. Protecting your child from pain doesn't mean lying to them. It means giving them the truth when they're strong enough to carry it. I didn't understand that yet. I thought silence was love. But silence is just fear dressed up as protection. If that's something you're wrestling with right now, stay with me, because Virginia learns this lesson the hard way. And maybe her story will save you from making the same mistake. The first year was brutal. Mary had colic, screamed for hours. I walked the apartment at 3 in the morning, bouncing her, singing off-key lullabies, begging her to just sleep. I was so tired I forgot what it felt like to not be tired. But there were victories too. Her first smile, her first laugh, the way she reached for me when she was scared, like I was the only safe place in the world. I taught her to walk in our cramped living room, watched her take those wobbly first steps toward me, arms outstretched, trusting I'd catch her. And I always did. When she started preschool, the teacher asked for emergency contact information. Father's name, she said, pen poised over the form. It's just me, I said. The teacher gave me that look, the pitying one, the one that said, Oh, you poor thing. I hated that look. But I smiled politely, filled out the form, and left. Mary never asked about her father when she was little. I think kids just accept whatever normal you give them. And our normal was just us. But as she got older, the questions started. Why don't I have a dad like Emma? Where is he? Did he love us? I answered carefully. Honestly, but never completely. He wasn't ready to be a father, I'd say. But that's not your fault. You are loved. You are wanted. And you are enough. I never said his name. Never showed her pictures. Never gave her a ghost to chase. Now here's what you need to understand. Virginia thought she was protecting Mary. And maybe she was. But secrets have a way of surfacing when you least expect them. And what's about to happen, what's about to be revealed, will test everything Virginia built. If you need to know how Mary reacts when she finds out, make sure you're subscribed, because that moment is coming. And it's going to break your heart before it heals it. Why didn't I tell Frederick? People asked me that over the years, friends, family, even Mary's pediatrician once, in a roundabout way. And I always gave the same answer. It was my choice. But that wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth was messier. I didn't tell him because I was afraid. Afraid he'd reject her the way he rejected me. Afraid he'd show up sporadically, just enough to confuse her but not enough to be a real father. Afraid he'd use his money and power to take her from me if he decided he wanted her after all. And yes, there was pride too. Pride that I'd built a life without him, that I'd survived when he assumed I couldn't, that Mary was thriving, happy, loved, without a single thing from the man who'd walked away. I told myself I buried the truth because it was kinder. Kinder to Mary. Kinder to me. Maybe even kinder to him. But was it? That's the question Virginia is about to face. And maybe it's a question you've faced too. When is protecting someone really protecting them? And when is it just protecting yourself? If this story is making you think, making you feel, making you question, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like this aren't just entertainment, they're mirrors. Present day. Mary was 15 now, old enough to ask harder questions, smart enough to know when I was dodging. 3 months ago, she asked me point blank, "Mom, who is my father?" We were sitting at the kitchen table. She'd just finished her homework. I was pretending to read a book I hadn't absorbed a single word of. "Why are you asking?" I said carefully. "Because I deserve to know." She was right, but I still wasn't ready. "It's complicated, sweetheart." "Everything with you is complicated," she said. Not meanly, just tired. "I'm not a kid anymore. Stop treating me like one." I opened my mouth, closed it, tried to find words that wouldn't hurt her. "One day," I said, "I promise. One day I'll tell you everything." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay." But I saw the disappointment in her eyes, and I knew I was running out of time. That conversation was 3 months ago, and now, here we are, in a hospital. With Frederick Chrisman down the hall, about to save the daughter he didn't know he had. And when Mary wakes up, she's going to have questions I can't dodge anymore. The truth is coming, whether I'm ready or not. And if you think you know how this goes, you don't. Stay with me. The hardest part is still ahead. I looked down at Mary now, in this hospital bed, fighting for her life. And I realized something. I'd spent 15 years trying to protect her from rejection. But in doing so, I'd robbed her of something too. The chance to be chosen. Because even if Frederick had walked away from me, he was here now. He said yes, without hesitation, without conditions. Maybe that counted for something, or maybe it was too little, too late. I didn't know yet. But I was about to find out. The transfusion is about to begin. Frederick's blood is about to save Mary's life. And when she wakes up, everything changes. The secret comes out. The questions get answered. And Virginia has to face the man she's hated, avoided, and, if she's honest, never fully let go of. Chapter 3 is where it all collides. And you don't want to miss it. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because this story is just getting started. And the best part? You're here for it. I squeezed Mary's hand one more time. Hang on, baby, I whispered. Just a little longer. Down the hall, they were prepping Frederick. And somewhere between the past I couldn't change and the future I couldn't control, I sat in that hospital room and did the only thing I had left. I waited. I buried the truth because I believed it was kinder. But as I sat there holding Mary's hand, watching machines breathe for her, I realized something. The truth doesn't stay buried when it's the only thing that can save you. And it was coming for me, whether I was ready or not. The surgery took 2 hours. 2 hours of sitting in that narrow hallway, watching doctors and nurses move past me like I was invisible. 2 hours of staring at the clock on the wall, willing time to move faster and slower all at once. 2 hours to think about everything I'd buried for 15 years. And that's when the memories started flooding back. Not the ones I'd just shared with myself. Different ones. Harder ones. The ones from 6 months ago. It was a Saturday afternoon in June when I saw him for the first time since Mary was born. I was in a department store, buying new clothes for Mary's upcoming school year. She was growing so fast I could barely keep up. 1 month her jeans fit perfectly. The next, they were 2 inches too short. I turned the corner past the children's section, heading toward the register. And there he was, Frederick Chrisman, standing in the baby department, holding up a tiny blue onesie, laughing at something the woman next to him was saying. My heart stopped. Not because I still loved him. I'd buried that feeling years ago, under layers of survival and single motherhood and Sunday morning pancakes with just the two of us. But because of what it meant. He had a baby, or was about to. He'd moved on, built the family he said he wasn't ready for. Found someone who fit into his life better than I ever could. You know that feeling when you see an ex living the life they refuse to build with you? It's not jealousy. It's not even anger. It's something deeper. It's the quiet devastation of realizing you weren't the problem. You were just the wrong timing. If you felt that, you know what Virginia felt in that moment. And if this story is speaking to you, subscribe, because you deserve to see her rise from this. You've earned that ending. I hid behind a clothing rack like a coward. Watched him through the gaps between hangers, this man I'd once loved, laughing in a baby store with a life that didn't include me. Didn't include Mary. He looked happy, and I hated him for it. But more than that, I hated myself for caring. I left without buying anything, drove home in silence. And when Mary asked why I was quiet at dinner, I lied. Just tired, sweetheart. She didn't believe me, but she didn't push. That night, I did something I swore I'd never do. I looked him up online, just a quick search. Just to see, just to know. His company's website showed a professional headshot. Older, more distinguished. The kind of man who'd built an empire while I'd been building IKEA furniture alone at midnight. I checked his social media. Private account, of course. But his company page was public, photo after photo of him at charity events, ribbon cuttings, award ceremonies, always in a perfect suit, always smiling that controlled, camera-ready smile. But no woman, no baby, no ring. Confusion crept in like cold water. If he was having a baby, why wasn't it anywhere online? Maybe it was new. Maybe he was keeping it private. Maybe the woman I saw in the store wasn't even his partner. Maybe she was a sister, a friend, a personal shopper. Or maybe I was inventing explanations because I didn't want to face what I'd seen. Here's the thing about assumptions. They feel like truth when you're in pain. Virginia saw what she expected to see, and it nearly destroyed her. If you've ever jumped to the wrong conclusion about someone, stay with me. Because what Virginia doesn't know yet, what she's about to discover, changes everything. And you need to see it happen. 2 weeks later, Mary asked me a question that twisted the knife. We were folding laundry together in the living room. She was matching socks. I was pretending the pile of unfolded clothes wasn't overwhelming. Mom, she said carefully, do you think my dad ever thinks about me? I froze, a towel half folded in my hands. Why are you asking? She shrugged. Emma's dad sends her birthday cards even though her parents are divorced. And I wonder sometimes if he knows I exist. If he ever wanted to know. My throat tightened. I could have told her right then. Could have said, "Actually, baby, he doesn't know, because I never told him, and that's on me, not him." But I didn't. "I'm sure he thinks about what could have been," I said instead. Safe. Vague. Cowardly. She nodded. Went back to folding socks. And I sat there drowning in my own lies. Virginia thought she was protecting Mary, but protection and control aren't the same thing. And the longer she kept the secret, the more it cost her. If you've ever held on to something because letting go felt too scary, leave a comment. Tell me what you held on to and what happened when you finally released it. Your story matters here, and someone needs to hear it. Then the coincidences started. A week later, I saw him at the grocery store. Different one than I usually went to. But mine was closed for renovations. He was in the produce section, didn't see me. I grabbed my cart and left half my list unfinished. The week after that, Mary's school hosted a career day. Guess who one of the featured speakers was? I kept Mary home that day, told her she had a doctor's appointment, another lie on the pile. Then I started hearing rumors. My coworker mentioned seeing an article about Frederick Chrisman. "Big news coming," she said. "Some major announcement. His foundation is expanding. Big pediatric initiative." But all I heard was, "He's preparing for something big," and my mind filled in the blanks. A baby announcement. A family he'd built without us. A future that proved he was always capable of commitment, just not with me. Pay attention to this moment, because Virginia is spiraling. And every wrong assumption is pulling her further from the truth. What she doesn't know, what she can't see yet, is that Frederick isn't preparing for a family. He's preparing for something else entirely, something that will bring him right back into her life whether she's ready or not. If you need to know what that is, make sure you're subscribed, because the truth is closer than she thinks. I started avoiding him everywhere. Different grocery store, different Target. I even skipped the charity 5K his company sponsored. "Why are we going to the far store?" Mary asked one Saturday. "Better produce," I lied. She looked at me like she knew I was hiding something. She was right. Running from the past doesn't make it disappear. It just makes you tired. Virginia was exhausted from avoiding Frederick, exhausted from lying, exhausted from carrying a truth that was getting heavier every single day. If you know that exhaustion, share this video, because there's a woman out there who needs to know she's not the only one carrying weight she can't put down. Be the reason she finds this story. Then, 3 months ago, I heard the rumor that broke me. A friend of a friend who worked in Frederick's building mentioned it casually at a birthday party I'd been dragged to. "Yeah, Chrisman's setting up some kind of foundation. Pediatric something. He's been obsessed with it for months. Barely leaves the office. People think it's personal." Pediatric. Personal. My blood ran cold. That confirmed it. He had a child. He was building something for his child. The baby I'd seen him shopping for was real. And I was the fool who thought for even a second that he might still be alone like I was. This is the assumption that almost destroyed Virginia. The wrong conclusion that made her bury the truth even deeper. But here's what she didn't know. Frederick wasn't building that foundation for his child. He was building it for someone else's. For children like the one he didn't know he had. If that twist just hit you, hit that like button. Because this story has layers, and we're just getting to the good ones. I made my decision that night. I would avoid Frederick Chrisman at all costs. I would never tell Mary about him. I would lock the past away so tightly that not even fate could pry it open. I thought I was protecting her. I thought I was protecting myself, but really, I was just running. Running from the man who left. Running from the truth. Running from the risk of rejection. And I would have kept running forever. If life hadn't stopped me 3 weeks later with a word I never saw coming. O negative. Virginia thought she could avoid Frederick forever. But fate had other plans. The blood type that saved Mary's life was the same blood type that shattered Virginia's carefully built walls. And now, sitting in this hospital hallway, she's about to face the consequences of every assumption she made. Chapter 4 is where everything collides. The surgery ends, Frederick emerges, and the conversation Virginia has been avoiding for 15 years is about to happen whether she's ready or not. Subscribe, Because you've come this far, and the truth is finally coming out. The surgery room doors opened. A doctor emerged, pulling off latex gloves, and my heart, which had been racing for 2 hours, suddenly stopped. The surgery room doors opened. A doctor emerged, pulling off latex gloves, and I was on my feet before he'd taken 3 steps. "How is she?" My voice came out raw. "How's my daughter?" He smiled. Small, but real. "The transfusion was successful," he said. "She's stable. Her body is accepting the blood well. We'll monitor her closely, but she's out of immediate danger." I collapsed back into the chair, sobbing with a relief so violent it hurt. She was okay. My baby was okay. "Can I see her?" I asked through tears. "Give us about 20 minutes to get her settled in recovery," he said gently. "Then yes." He walked away, and I was alone in the hallway again. Except I wasn't. Frederick stepped out of another room down the hall, a bandage wrapped around his arm. A nurse was giving him instructions I couldn't hear. He nodded, thanked her, and then his eyes found mine. He walked toward me slowly like he was afraid I might run. And God help me, I wanted to. There are moments in life when running isn't an option anymore. When the thing you've been avoiding is standing right in front of you, and all you can do is face it. Virginia spent 15 years building walls, and in one hospital hallway, they all came down. If you've ever had to face something you weren't ready for, you know this feeling. And if this story is gripping you the way I hope it is, hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next will change everything. "Virginia," he said quietly. I stood, wiped my face, tried to pull myself together. "Thank you," I managed, "for doing this. For saying yes." He shook his head. "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." We stood there in awful, heavy silence, the kind that's full of 15 years of unspoken things. "She's really mine?" he asked finally. His voice cracked on the last word. "Yes." 15 years, he said, more to himself than to me. "I have a 15-year-old daughter." "Had," I corrected softly. "You had no idea, now you do." He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't expected. Grief. "What's her name?" he asked. "Mary." "Mary," he repeated, like he was testing how it felt to say it. "That's beautiful." "After my grandmother," he nodded. "The one who raised you." I was surprised he remembered. "Yeah," I said. Another silence, thicker than before. "Can I—" he hesitated. "Can I see her? When she wakes up?" Every instinct I had screamed no. Screamed that I'd protected her this long and didn't need to expose her to potential rejection now. But then I thought about what Mary had asked me 2 weeks ago while folding laundry. "Do you think my dad ever thinks about me?" And I realized he was thinking about her right now. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I need to talk to her first. Prepare her. She doesn't know about you." Pain flashed across his face. "Of course, I understand." "Do you?" I asked, and there was more edge in my voice than I intended. "Do you understand what it's been like? Raising her alone, answering her questions, watching her wonder why she wasn't enough for you to stay?" "Virginia, she was enough," I said, my voice shaking now. "She's always been enough. You just weren't ready." "You're right," he said quietly. "I wasn't. And I've regretted it every day since." I blinked. "What?" "Wait. Every day?" That stopped Virginia cold. Because if he regretted it, why didn't he reach out? Why didn't he try? If you're wondering the same thing, stay with me. Because what Frederick is about to reveal will reframe everything Virginia thought she knew. And you need to hear this. "I tried to find you," he said, "about 6 months after I left. I went to your apartment. You'd moved. No forwarding address. I asked around. No one knew where you'd gone. I had moved. To a cheaper place across town when the rent went up and I couldn't afford it anymore, on one income. I assumed you didn't want to be found," he continued. "And I thought, maybe that was for the best. Maybe you'd moved on, found someone better." Someone who could actually be there. So you just gave up? I asked. I convinced myself I was doing you a favor, he said, and his voice was thick with regret. That you were better off without me. That I'd just mess things up if I came back. I stared at him. This man I'd built into a villain in my mind. This man who I'd assumed forgot about us the moment he left. I saw you, I said suddenly. 6 months ago, at the department store. You were buying baby clothes. His brow furrowed. Baby clothes? Blue onesie. You were laughing with some woman. I thought. I couldn't finish the sentence. Understanding dawned on his face. That was my assistant, he said gently. Her sister just had a baby. I was helping her pick out a gift because she has terrible taste. The floor tilted again. You thought I had a kid, he said. Not a question. A realization. I didn't answer, didn't need to. Virginia, I don't have a family, I don't have anyone. I've spent 15 years building a company because it was the only thing I knew how to do that didn't require me to be emotionally available. My father was never there, Frederick said quietly. CEO, always working. I barely knew him. And when he died, I realized I'd spent my whole life trying to be him, and terrified I'd become him. That's why I ran when you told me you were pregnant. Not because I didn't want you, because I didn't want to fail a child the way he failed me. Everything Virginia believed was built on a misunderstanding. The baby clothes weren't his. The foundation wasn't for his child. He'd been alone this whole time, just like her. If that just flipped your entire understanding of this story, leave a comment. Because assumptions can destroy us. And the truth? The truth is always more complicated than we think. The foundation, I said. The pediatric one. Everyone said it was personal. It is personal, he said, but not for the reason you think. A nurse appeared before he could explain. Mrs. Baker, your daughter is awake. She's asking for you. My heart leapt. Go, Frederick said. She needs you. I started to walk away, then stopped, turned back. The foundation, I said. Why is it personal? He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Because I never got to be a father, he said quietly. So I figured I'd help kids who needed one, even if I couldn't help my own. Did you catch that? Frederick has been trying to fill the void he created, not with another family, but by helping children who had nothing. It doesn't erase what he did. It doesn't make him a hero, but it makes him human. And sometimes that's harder to forgive than cruelty. If this story is hitting you in unexpected ways, hit that like button. Because this is what real stories do. They complicate what we thought was simple. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded and walked toward Mary's room. But as I rounded the corner, I heard Frederick talking to someone on his phone. Yeah, I'm still at the hospital, he was saying. No, don't reschedule the gala. The foundation launch is too important. These kids have been waiting long enough. I stopped. Foundation launch, not a baby announcement. A launch for children who needed medical care. Children whose parents couldn't afford it. Children like Mary could have been if I hadn't been so stubborn about accepting help. Virginia had built an entire story in her head, and every single piece of it was wrong. The baby clothes, the foundation, the life he was building. None of it was what she thought. And now she has to face the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she was the one who kept them apart. If you're feeling what Virginia is feeling right now, share this video, because someone needs to hear this story today, and you might be the reason they find it. I pushed open the door to Mary's room. She was propped up on pillows, pale but awake. Her eyes found mine, and she smiled weakly. Hey, Mom, she whispered. I rushed to her side, took her hand, kissed her forehead. Hey, baby, how are you feeling? Tired, but okay, she paused. The doctor said someone donated blood, that it saved my life. My throat tightened. Yeah, I said carefully. Someone did. Who? She asked. This was it. The moment I'd been dreading and avoiding for 15 years. I could lie, could say it was anonymous, could buy myself more time. But I was so tired of lying. Mary, I said softly, there's something I need to tell you. This is the moment. The truth is about to come out, and nothing will ever be the same. If you need to know how Mary reacts, if you need to see what happens when a 15-year-old girl learns her father has been alive this whole time, make sure you're subscribed. Because Chapter 5 is where hearts break before they heal, and you don't want to miss it. But before I could say another word, there was a soft knock on the door. Frederick stood in the doorway, hesitant, his bandaged arm visible. Mary looked at him, then at me, then back at him. "Mom," she said slowly, staring at Frederick standing in the doorway. "Why does that man have my eyes?" And in that moment, every lie I'd ever told began to crumble. And there it is, the question that changes everything. Mary sees it before Virginia can even explain it. The truth is written on Frederick's face, and now there's nowhere left to hide. Chapter 5 is the confrontation you've been waiting for, the tears, the anger, the questions, the truth. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is about to reach its breaking point, and you've earned the right to see how it ends. The three of us stood there, frozen in a moment that felt like the edge of everything, and I realized fate wasn't just refusing to leave me alone. It was forcing me to finally face what I'd been running from all along. The truth. "Mom," Mary said again, her voice stronger now, "why does that man have my eyes?" The room went silent except for the beeping of monitors. Frederick stood frozen in the doorway, his bandaged arm at his side, his eyes locked on Mary like he was seeing a ghost. Mary looked at me, waiting. And I realized there was no more time, no more excuses, no more protecting anyone from anything. "Mary," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "this is Frederick Chrisman." She frowned. "Okay, but why does he? He's your father." The words hung in the air like smoke. Mary blinked. Once, twice. Then she looked at Frederick. Really looked. At his eyes that matched hers. At the shape of his face that mirrored her own. At the man she'd wondered about her entire life, standing 3 feet away. "My father," she repeated flatly. "Yes," I said. "The one who wasn't ready to be a dad?" My heart cracked. "Yes." She turned to Frederick. "So you just, what, showed up?" Frederick took a careful step into the room. "I didn't know about you," he said gently. "Not until today. Your mother never told me." Mary's head whipped toward me. "You never told him?" And there it was. The accusation I'd been dreading for 15 years. This is the moment Virginia feared most. Not Frederick's anger, but her daughter's. Because the person she was protecting just became the person she hurt. If you've ever made a choice you thought was right only to discover it was wrong, you know this pain. And if this story is cutting deep, subscribe, because the hardest truths are still coming, and you need to see how Virginia faces them. "I thought I was protecting you," I said, my voice shaking. You thought wrong," Mary said. "Not cruelly, just factually. And somehow that was worse." Frederick moved closer to the bed, slowly, like Mary was a wounded animal that might bolt. "Your mother did what she thought was best," he said quietly, "and I gave her every reason to think I wouldn't be any good at this." "But you're here now," Mary said. "I am." "Why?" "Because you needed me," he said simply. "And because the moment I found out you existed, nothing else mattered." Mary studied him for a long moment, then looked at the bandage on his arm. "You gave me blood," she said. "I did. That's why I'm alive." "Yes?" She nodded slowly, processing. "Okay." Just like that. Okay. I'd spent 15 years imagining this moment, dreading it, building it up into something catastrophic. But Mary, my brave, stubborn, impossibly strong daughter, just said, "Okay." Children are more resilient than we give them credit for. Virginia thought the truth would destroy Mary. But what's destroying Mary is the lies, the gaps, the years of wondering. If you've ever underestimated someone's strength because you were trying to protect them, leave a comment. Because sometimes the kindest thing we can do is trust people with the truth. "I need to rest," Mary said, her voice tired. "But can you stay, both of you?" I looked at Frederick. He looked at me. Of course, we said at the same time. Mary smiled weakly and closed her eyes. Within minutes, her breathing deepened. She was asleep. Frederick and I stood on opposite sides of her bed, watching her breathe, watching her chest rise and fall with blood he'd given her, in a life I'd built alone. She has your stubbornness, Frederick said quietly, a small smile playing at his lips. And your eyes, I replied. He looked at Mary, really looked at her, and I saw him noticing things for the first time. The way her eyebrows drew together when she was thinking, just like his did. The shape of her hands, long fingers that matched his exactly. The way she tilted her head when she was processing information. It's strange, he said softly. Seeing myself in someone else. I've been seeing it for 15 years, I said. Every time she makes a decision, I see you. Every time she digs her heels in about something, I see you. Every time she's brilliant and stubborn and too smart for her own good, I see you. His eyes filled with tears. I missed everything. Not everything, I said. You're here now. This is what second chances look like. Not perfect, not erasing the past, just two people showing up and trying. If you believe in second chances, if you've needed one yourself, leave a comment. Tell me about the moment someone gave you grace you didn't deserve. Because that's what we're witnessing here. And it matters. Over the next 2 days, I watched Frederick and Mary begin to find their way to each other. Small moments. He brought her books from the hospital gift shop. She loved mysteries. Turns out so did he. She complained about the hospital food. He snuck in her favorite soup from a restaurant downtown. Somehow he'd asked me what she liked and actually remembered. She asked him about his company. He asked her about school. Conversations that were careful at first, then slowly became easier. But I also saw him noticing things. Things that connected them in ways that went beyond blood type. On the second day, a nurse came in to check Mary's vitals. She glanced at Frederick, then at Mary, then back again. Wow, she said with a smile. The family resemblance is incredible. You two have the exact same eyes. Mary grinned. That's because he's my dad. The nurse beamed. Well, that explains it. It's nice when dads can be here. Not all of them make the time. After she left, Frederick looked at Mary. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For calling me that, he said. I know I haven't earned it yet. Mary shrugged. You gave me blood. That's pretty dad-like. Watch how Mary is choosing who Frederick gets to be. Not based on the past, but based on what he does now. That's wisdom beyond her years. And if you're watching someone try to earn back what they lost, you know how powerful that choice is. Hit that like button if Mary's grace is inspiring you. Because forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength. But not everyone was so accepting. On the third day, Mary's best friend Emma came to visit. A bubbly 16-year-old who'd known Mary since kindergarten. She walked in, saw Frederick sitting beside Mary's bed, and froze. Wait, Emma said slowly. Is that Frederick Chrisman, like the billionaire? Yep, Mary said casually. Why is he… Emma's eyes went wide. Oh my God, the eyes. You have the same eyes. Is he… My dad, Mary finished. Yeah. Emma looked at me, confused. But I thought you said… I know what I said, I interrupted gently. It's complicated. Emma studied all three of us, her teenage brain working overtime. So he just showed up? She asked. He saved my life, Mary said simply. Emma seemed to accept that. Teenagers are remarkably adaptable when they want to be. But after she left, I felt the weight of what was coming. More questions, more people noticing, more explanations I'd have to give. Privacy in the age of social media is a myth. And when your father is a billionaire CEO, that myth dies even faster. Virginia is about to discover that the truth doesn't just affect her family, it affects everyone who knows them. If you've ever had your private life become public, you understand this fear. Share this video, because someone needs to know they're not alone in that exposure. That afternoon, Dr. Patel, Mary's primary physician, came to review her discharge plan. He looked at the chart, then at Frederick, then at Mary. Mr. Chrisman, he said carefully, I need to update Mary's medical records. Should I list you as the biological father? The room went quiet. Mary looked at me. I looked at Frederick. Yes, Frederick said firmly. Please do. Dr. Patel nodded and made notes. And for emergency contact purposes? Add me, Frederick said. Please. He gave his personal cell number. Not an assistant. Not an office line. Him? After Dr. Patel left, I felt something twist in my chest. Jealousy. Not because Frederick was stepping up, but because for 15 years, it had just been me. Me and Mary against the world. And now someone else was being added to emergency contact forms. Someone else was being called Dad. Someone else was becoming necessary. I hated that I felt that way, but I couldn't deny it. Virginia is feeling something uncomfortable. Jealousy of the good thing happening. That's real. That's honest. And if you've ever resented something you knew was right, you're not broken. You're human. Leave a comment if you understand this feeling, because shame keeps us quiet. But honesty sets us free. That evening, after Mary fell asleep, Frederick and I sat in the hospital cafeteria. People are noticing, I said quietly. I know, he replied. Emma's going to tell everyone at school. Let them talk, he said simply. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who… I stopped myself. Who what? He asked gently. Who lied? I finished. Who kept a secret? Who's going to be judged by everyone who knows us? Frederick leaned forward. Virginia, I don't care what people think. I care about Mary, and I care about making this right. But it's not just about you, I said. It's about her. What happens when the press finds out? When it becomes a story? When photographers show up at her school? He was quiet for a moment. Then we protect her, he said. Together. Together. The word felt foreign and familiar all at once. Virginia thought she could control the narrative. But the truth has a life of its own, and in Chapter 6 it explodes beyond the hospital walls. The media gets wind of the story. Mary's life changes overnight. And Frederick has to decide how far he'll go to protect the daughter he just met. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what happens next will test everything they've built. And you need to see if this family survives it. I went back to Mary's room that night, exhausted, terrified, hopeful, and grieving all at once. And as I watched her sleep, I realized something. The truth was going to come out, with or without me. I could control the secret for 15 years, but I couldn't control what happened once it was free. And standing in that hospital hallway, listening to my daughter sleep, I finally understood. The explosion was coming. The only question left was whether we'd survive it together, or be destroyed by it alone. Mary stood in the doorway, pale and trembling, one hand gripping her IV pole, the other pressed against the doorframe for support. I heard everything, she said again. I was on my feet immediately. Mary, you should be in bed. I heard you crying, she said, looking at me. I heard him say you both made mistakes. I heard you say you were hiding. Frederick stood slowly, carefully, like sudden movements might shatter the moment. How much did you hear? I asked quietly. Enough, Mary said. She looked at Frederick. You have a foundation for sick kids. He nodded. I do. And you didn't know about me. Not until today. She processed this, her brilliant, analytical mind working through the information the same way she worked through math problems at the kitchen table. So Mom thought you didn't want me, she said slowly. But you didn't know I existed. And you thought she didn't want you to know? Yes, Frederick said softly. Mary looked between us. That's really stupid. Despite everything, I almost laughed. Yeah, I said, wiping my eyes. It really is. Out of the mouths of children. Sometimes it takes a 15-year-old to say what two adults spent 15 years avoiding. The truth is simple, even when we make it complicated. If Mary's clarity just hit you, subscribe. Because the next generation sees what we're too afraid to face. And this story is about to show you why that matters. Mary walked, slowly, carefully, back to her bed. Frederick moved to help her, instinctively reaching out, then hesitating. It's okay, Mary said. You can help. He took her arm gently, steadied her as she climbed back into bed, and I watched something pass between them. Something wordless. Something that looked like the beginning of trust. Mary settled against the pillows, exhausted from the effort. "I need to sleep," she said. "But can you both be here when I wake up?" "Of course," I said immediately. "Both of you?" she asked, looking at Frederick. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. She nodded and closed her eyes. Within minutes, her breathing deepened. She was asleep. Frederick and I stood on opposite sides of her bed again, but this time something had shifted. The secret was out. The truth was known. And we were both just two people trying to figure out what came next. "She has your stubbornness," Frederick said quietly, a small smile playing at his lips. "And your eyes," I replied. He looked at Mary, really looked at her, and I saw him noticing things for the first time. The way her eyebrows drew together when she was thinking, just like his did. The shape of her hands, long fingers that matched his exactly. The way she tilted her head when she was processing information. "It's strange," he said softly. "Seeing myself in someone else." "I've been seeing it for 15 years, I said. "Every time she makes a decision, I see you. Every time she digs her heels in about something, I see you. Every time she's brilliant and stubborn and too smart for her own good, I see you." His eyes filled with tears. "I missed everything." "Not everything," I said. "You're here now. This is what second chances look like. Not perfect, not erasing the past, just two people showing up and trying. If you believe in second chances, if you've needed one yourself, leave a comment. Tell me about the moment someone gave you grace you didn't deserve, because that's what we're witnessing here. And it matters." Over the next 2 days, I watched Frederick and Mary begin to find their way to each other. Small moments. He brought her books from the hospital gift shop. She loved mysteries. Turns out, so did he. She complained about the hospital food. He snuck in her favorite soup from a restaurant downtown. Somehow, he'd asked me what she liked and actually remembered. She asked him about his company, he asked her about school. Conversations that were careful at first, then slowly became easier. But I also saw him noticing things. Things that connected them in ways that went beyond blood type. On the second day, a nurse came in to check Mary's vitals. She glanced at Frederick, then at Mary, then back again. "Wow," she said with a smile. "The family resemblance is incredible. You two have the exact same eyes." Mary grinned. "That's because he's my dad." The nurse beamed. "Well, that explains it. It's nice when dads can be here. Not all of them make the time." After she left, Frederick looked at Mary. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For calling me that," he said. "I know I haven't earned it yet." Mary shrugged. "You gave me blood. That's pretty dad-like." Watch how Mary is choosing who Frederick gets to be, not based on the past, but based on what he does now. That's wisdom beyond her years. And if you're watching someone try to earn back what they lost, you know how powerful that choice is. Hit that like button if Mary's grace is inspiring you. Because forgiveness isn't weakness. It's strength. But not everyone was so accepting. On the third day, Mary's best friend Emma came to visit. A bubbly 16-year-old who'd known Mary since kindergarten. She walked in, saw Frederick sitting beside Mary's bed, and froze. "Wait," Emma said slowly. "Is that Frederick Chrisman? Like the billionaire?" "Yep," Mary said casually. "Why is he—" Emma's eyes went wide. "Oh my God. The eyes. You have the same eyes. Is he my dad?" Mary finished. "Yeah." Emma looked at me, confused. "But I thought you said—" "I know what I said," I interrupted gently. "It's complicated." Emma studied all three of us, her teenage brain working overtime. "So he just showed up?" she asked. "He saved my life," Mary said simply. Emma seemed to accept that. Teenagers are remarkably adaptable when they want to be. But after she left, I felt the weight of what was coming. More questions, more people noticing, more explanations I'd have to give. Privacy in the age of social media is a myth. And when your father is a billionaire CEO, that myth dies even faster. Virginia is about to discover that the truth doesn't just affect her family, it affects everyone who knows them. If you've ever had your private life become public, you understand this fear. Share this video, because someone needs to know they're not alone in that exposure. That afternoon, Dr. Patel, Mary's primary physician, came to review her discharge plan. He looked at the chart, then at Frederick, then at Mary. "Mr. Chrisman," he said carefully, "I need to update Mary's medical records. Should I list you as the biological father?" The room went quiet. Mary looked at me. I looked at Frederick. "Yes," Frederick said firmly. "Please do." Dr. Patel nodded and made notes. "And for emergency contact purposes?" "Add me," Frederick said. "Please." He gave his personal cell number. Not an assistant, not an office line. Him. After Dr. Patel left, I felt something twist in my chest. Jealousy. Not because Frederick was stepping up, but because for 15 years, it had just been me and Mary against the world, and now someone else was being added to emergency contact forms. Someone else was being called dad. Someone else was becoming necessary. I hated that I felt that way, but I couldn't deny it. Virginia is feeling something uncomfortable. Jealousy of the good thing happening. That's real. That's honest. And if you've ever resented something you knew was right, you're not broken. You're human. Leave a comment if you understand this feeling. Because shame keeps us quiet, but honesty sets us free. That evening, after Mary fell asleep, Frederick and I sat in the hospital cafeteria. "People are noticing," I said quietly. "I know," he replied. "Emma's going to tell everyone at school." "Let them talk," he said simply. "Easy for you to say. You're not the one who—" I stopped myself. "Who what?" he asked gently. "Who lied?" I finished. "Who kept a secret? Who's going to be judged by everyone who knows us?" Frederick leaned forward. "Virginia, I don't care what people think. I care about Mary, and I care about making this right." "But it's not just about you," I said. "It's about her." "What happens when the press finds out? When it becomes a story? When photographers show up at her school?" He was quiet for a moment. "Then we protect her," he said. "Together." Together. The word felt foreign and familiar all at once. Secrets don't disappear, they metastasize. And what started as protection is about to become persecution. Virginia thought hiding the truth would keep Mary safe. She's about to discover that exposure is far more dangerous. If you need to know what happens when privacy becomes a weapon, subscribe now. Chapter 7 is the collision, and nobody walks away unscathed. I went back to Mary's room that night, exhausted, terrified, hopeful, and grieving all at once. And as I watched her sleep, I realized something. The truth was going to come out, with or without me. I could control the secret for 15 years, but I couldn't control what happened once it was free. And standing in that hospital hallway, listening to my daughter sleep, I finally understood. The explosion was coming. The only question left was whether we'd survive it together, or be destroyed by it alone. Virginia thought she could control the narrative, but the truth has a life of its own. And in Chapter 7, it explodes beyond the hospital walls. The media gets wind of the story. Mary's life changes overnight. And Frederick has to decide how far he'll go to protect the daughter he just met. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what happens next will test everything they've built, and you need to see if this family survives it. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing. 27 missed calls. And a text from my best friend, "Virginia, turn on the news." I did, and there it was. It happened on day 4. Mary was scheduled to be discharged the next morning. The doctors were pleased with her recovery. Her color had returned. Her strength was coming back. She was going to be fine. But I wasn't. Because that morning, Frederick's phone had been ringing nonstop. And by noon, I understood why. Someone had leaked the story. Frederick found me in the hospital cafeteria, his jaw tight, his phone clutched in his hand. "We need to talk," he said. Not a request, a demand. "What's wrong?" I asked. though I already knew from the look on his face that everything was wrong. He sat down across from me and turned his phone screen toward me. The cafeteria was too cold. Or maybe that was just my blood running ice cold as I read the headline. Billionaire CEO Frederick Chrisman's secret daughter revealed after hospital emergency. The headline was everywhere. Every news site, every gossip column, every social media platform. There were photos of the hospital, of Frederick entering and leaving, of me, taken through the cafeteria window looking exhausted and small. My stomach dropped. How did they— Does it matter? Frederick said, his voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. It's out there now. Mary's face is going to be everywhere by tonight. Her name, her school, her whole life. I know you didn't leak it, he said. But this is what happens when you keep secrets for 15 years, Virginia. Eventually, they explode. This is every parent's nightmare. Your child's life becoming public property without their consent. Their story told by strangers who don't know them and don't care. If you've ever felt that violation of privacy, that loss of control, you understand what Virginia is feeling. Subscribe if this story is hitting too close to home, because what happens next shows how a family fights back. Don't put this on me, I said, my own anger rising now. You're the one who's famous. You're the one whose life is public. And you're the one who made sure I had no chance to prepare for this, he shot back. No chance to protect her before the world found out. No chance to— To what? I interrupted. To control the narrative? To manage your image? To be her father, he said, his voice rising. To have a relationship with her before everyone else decided what that relationship should look like. People at nearby tables were starting to stare. Frederick lowered his voice, but the intensity didn't diminish. Do you have any idea what's coming? He asked. Reporters at her school, photographers following her, classmates treating her differently because her father is rich, kids who'll want to be her friend for the wrong reasons, adults who'll judge her for existing. I know, I said quietly. I've been protecting her from exactly that for 15 years. No, Frederick said, and his voice cracked. You've been hiding her. There's a difference. The words hit like a slap. Hear the distinction Frederick is making. Protection prepares someone for the world. Hiding keeps them from it. And Virginia is finally facing the difference. If you've ever confused the two in your own life, leave a comment. Because this is the lesson that costs us the most when we learn it too late. You think I don't know that? I said, my voice shaking now. You think I haven't been living with that guilt every single day since you think I don't know that? I said, my voice shaking now. You think I haven't been living with that guilt every single day since you walked into this hospital? Then why? He asked, leaning forward. Why did you do it? And don't give me the answer you gave before about being afraid. I need the real answer, Virginia. The one you haven't said out loud yet. I opened my mouth, closed it. Felt 15 years of justifications crumbling. Because I was angry, I finally said. Because you broke my heart. Because you chose your company over us, and I wanted you to feel what I felt. Alone, invisible, like you didn't matter. The confession hung in the air between us. Frederick sat back, his expression unreadable. So it was revenge, he said quietly. No, I said quickly. It wasn't. Yes, it was, he said. Maybe not entirely, maybe not consciously. But part of you wanted me to suffer, and I did. Every single day for 15 years I thought about that night. About the choice I made. About the baby I told you I couldn't have. His voice broke. Do you know what I would have given to know about her? He asked. To watch her grow up. To be there for her first word, her first step, her first day of school. You said you weren't ready. I was terrified, he said, his composure finally shattering. I was 28 years old, trying to build something that mattered, and I was terrified I would fail as a father the way my father failed me. The cafeteria had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now. Frederick just revealed what Virginia never knew. He wasn't running from Mary. He was running from his own father's shadow, from his own fear of repeating the past. That doesn't excuse abandonment, but it explains it. And sometimes, understanding doesn't mean forgiving. It just means seeing clearly. Hit that like button if this layer just changed how you see Frederick, because hurt people until they face what hurt them. You never told me that, I whispered. You never gave me the chance, he said. You disappeared, changed your number, moved, and I convinced myself you were better off without me, that I was doing you a favor by staying away. So we both made assumptions, I said. Yes, he agreed, but my assumptions didn't cost our daughter 15 years. The truth of that statement broke something in me. I know, I said, tears streaming down my face now. I know I was wrong. I know I stole time from both of you. I know I made choices based on my pain instead of her needs. I know all of it, Frederick, and I hate myself for it. He stared at me, his own eyes wet now. I don't want you to hate yourself, he said, his voice softer. I want you to understand what you did, what we both did, because we can't fix it if we don't acknowledge it. This is what real accountability looks like. Not deflecting, not defending, just acknowledging the damage and sitting with it. Virginia isn't asking for forgiveness yet. She's just naming what she did wrong, and that's the first step toward making it right. If you're wrestling with something you did that you can't undo, share this video. Because someone needs to know that acknowledgement, even when it's painful, is still progress. I'm acknowledging it, I said. I'm trying to make it right. Are you? He asked. Because from where I'm sitting, you're still controlling everything. Still deciding when Mary can see me. For how long, under what circumstances. I'm her mother, and I'm her father, he said. Or I'm trying to be. But every time I get close, I see you watching, measuring, judging whether I'm good enough, whether I've earned it. Because you haven't, I said. You don't just get to walk back in after 15 years and… I didn't walk back in, he interrupted. You called me because you had no choice. And the moment I found out about her, I said yes. No hesitation. No conditions. I gave her my blood, Virginia. I gave her my life. What more do I have to do to prove I'm not leaving? The question shattered whatever composure I had left. Frederick is asking the question every person who's trying to earn back trust asks, what more do I have to do? And the truth is, there's no answer that satisfies everyone. Trust isn't earned on a timeline. It's earned through consistency. Day after day, choice after choice. If you're trying to prove yourself to someone, or if someone is trying to prove themselves to you, stay with me, because this story is about to show you what real rebuilding looks like. I didn't have an answer, because the truth was, nothing he did would ever give back what was lost. No amount of presence could replace 15 years of absence. No amount of love could erase 15 years of questions. And no amount of trying could undo the damage we'd both done. I don't know, I finally said. I don't know what you have to do. I don't know how we fix this. I don't know how to co-parent with someone I've spent 15 years resenting. So we figure it out, Frederick said. Together, imperfectly, but together. What if I can't? I asked. What if I'm too broken to do this right? Then we'll be broken together, he said simply. Because that's what families do. Families aren't perfect. They're not supposed to be. They're just people trying their best and failing often and showing up anyway. If your family's messy and complicated and nothing like the fairy tale, you're not alone. Leave a comment and tell me one truth about your imperfect family. Because those truths are what connect us. And this community is built on real stories, not perfect ones. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Mary. I answered immediately. Sweetheart, what's wrong? Mom, she said, her voice tight with panic. There are people outside my window, with cameras. The nurses are trying to get rid of them, but they keep asking about Dad. About me. About why I was hidden. My blood ran cold. Frederick was already standing, heading toward the elevator. We're coming, I said. Stay away from the window. I hung up and ran after him. And in that moment, running toward our daughter together, I realized the confrontation wasn't the hard part. The hard part was what came next. Protecting her from a world that wanted to tear our story apart before we'd even figured out how to tell it. The world knows. The cameras are here. And Mary is about to experience what it means to be Frederick Crispin's daughter. Chapter 8 is the climax you've been waiting for. The moment Mary faces the truth publicly. The moment this family decides who they are to each other. And the moment Virginia and Frederick learn if their broken pieces can still build something whole. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Because you've come this far, and the ending is worth every moment you've invested. We burst through the door to Mary's room together. She was sitting on the bed, clutching a pillow, staring at the window where camera flashes were going off like lightning. And when she looked at us, at both of us, standing side by side, she started to cry. Mary was crying. Not the quiet, controlled tears I'd seen before. These were loud, body-shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep and wounded. Frederick and I rushed to her bedside. I reached for her first, maternal instinct overriding everything else. "Baby, it's okay." "It's not okay," Mary said, pulling back from me. "There are cameras outside. People are taking pictures of me. My phone won't stop buzzing. Emma just texted that it's all over TikTok, all over Instagram. Everyone at school knows." Another camera flash went off outside. Mary flinched. Frederick moved to the window and pulled the curtain shut, his jaw tight with rage. "I'm calling security," he said, already dialing. "And my lawyer. No one gets within 50 feet of this room." Within minutes, hospital security cleared the area. Frederick's legal team was already drafting cease and desist letters. His publicist was preparing a statement. But none of that mattered to Mary. She sat on that hospital bed, 15 years old, her life exploding in real time, and looked at both of us with an expression that broke my heart. "Everyone knows now," she said quietly. "Everyone knows I'm the daughter he didn't know about. The secret, the hidden one." "Mary," Frederick started. "Do you know what they're saying?" she interrupted, looking at her phone. "That mom trapped you. That she's a gold digger who hid me so she could get money later. That you're only here now because it looks good for your company." "That's not true," Frederick said firmly. "I know that," Mary said, "but they don't. And now I have to go back to school and face everyone who thinks they know my story better than I do. This is what happens when strangers write your story for you, when headlines become your identity before you've even figured out who you are. If you've ever had your life reduced to gossip, to rumors, to narratives you didn't write, you understand what Mary is feeling. Subscribe if this story is showing you truths you've lived. Because what happens next shows how families fight back against lies. I sat beside her on the bed. "We'll figure this out. We'll get ahead of it." "How?" Mary asked. "How do you get ahead of the truth?" "It's not the whole truth," I said. "They don't know. They know enough," she interrupted. "They know you kept me from him. They know he didn't know I existed. They know I'm 15 and we just met. What else is there?" The question hung in the air. Frederick pulled a chair close to the bed, sat down, looked at Mary with an intensity that made me nervous. "Ask me," he said quietly. "Whatever you want to know, whatever you need to understand. Ask me." Mary studied him, then took a shaky breath. "Did you love my mom?" she asked. Frederick didn't hesitate. "Yes, very much." "Then why did you leave?" "Because I was scared," he said honestly. "Scared I'd fail as a father. Scared I'd become like my own father who was never there. Scared I'd destroy what your mother and I had because I didn't know how to be what you both needed." "So you just ran," Mary said. "Yes," Frederick admitted, "and it's the worst decision I've ever made." Mary absorbed this, then turned to me. "And you never told him about me because you were scared too," she said. Not a question, a statement. "Yes," I said. "I was scared he'd reject you, or worse, that he'd love you but not enough, and I couldn't stand the thought of you feeling unwanted." "So you made the choice for me," Mary said. "You decided I was better off not knowing him." The accusation was gentle, but it landed hard. Mary just named what every child of a broken family feels. I didn't get to choose. Adults made decisions that shaped my entire life, and I had no say. If you're a parent who's made choices for your child's protection, or if you're a child who lived with those choices, leave a comment. Because this conversation is one we all need to have. "I did," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "And I was wrong." "You were trying to protect me," Mary said. "That doesn't make it right." "No," she agreed. "But it makes it understandable." The maturity in her voice shattered me. Frederick leaned forward. Mary, I know I can't get back the years I missed. I can't take back not being there. But I'm here now. And I will be here for every single day forward if you'll let me. Mary looked at him for a long moment. What does that look like? She asked. You being here? Whatever you want it to look like, Frederick said. I can be involved as much or as little as you're comfortable with. This is your choice, not mine. Not your mom's, yours. The power shift was visible. Mary sat up straighter, realizing she had control. Frederick just did something crucial. He gave Mary control, not partial control, complete control. That's how you rebuild trust with someone you've lost. You don't demand. You don't push, you offer, and you wait. If someone in your life is trying to earn their way back, hit that like button. Because this is what redemption looks like in real time. I want you to come to my soccer games, Mary said quietly. I have one next Saturday. Frederick's eyes filled with tears. I'll be there. I want you to text me sometimes, not just mom, me directly. I will. I want to know about your life, the real stuff, not the CEO stuff, the real you. You'll know everything, Frederick promised. Mary nodded, then asked the question I'd been dreading. Can I come visit you sometime? See where you live? I stiffened. Frederick noticed. Of course, he said carefully. Whenever your mom is comfortable with that. Mary turned to me. You don't get to decide that anymore, Mom. I'm 15. I get to choose. The words should have hurt. But instead, they felt like relief. Virginia just experienced what every parent eventually faces. The moment your child becomes their own person and you have to let them choose, even when their choices scare you. If you've had to let go of control over someone you love, share this video, because that lesson is one of the hardest, and it never stops being hard. You're right, I said. You do get to choose. Mary looked surprised, like she'd expected a fight. Really? She asked. Really, I confirmed. I've made enough choices for you. It's your turn. Something shifted in Mary's expression, softness replacing anger. I'm still mad at you, she said. Both of you. For all the years I'll never get back. You should be, Frederick said. But I don't want to waste more time being angry, Mary continued. I want to know you. I want to have a dad, even if it's 15 years late. Frederick broke then, completely. Tears streaming down his face as he reached for Mary's hand. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry I wasn't there, that I missed your whole life, that I didn't get to protect you from this. Mary squeezed his hand. You're protecting me now. And in that moment, watching them hold on to each other, I saw what I'd been too afraid to see for 15 years. They needed each other. Not because of me, in spite of me. Family isn't just biology. It's not just history. It's choice. Mary is choosing Frederick. Frederick is choosing Mary. And that choice, made freely in the rubble of broken years, is more powerful than any DNA test. If you believe in chosen family, in second chances, in love that shows up late but shows up strong, leave a comment. Tell me who chose you. Because those stories matter. Mary wiped her eyes. Looked at both of us sitting on either side of her bed. So what happens now? She asked. Now we go home, I said. You recover. And we figure out how to be a family. A weird family, Mary said. The weirdest, Frederick agreed with a small smile. With cameras following us, Mary added. Not if I can help it, Frederick said. My team is already working on it. We'll keep you as protected as possible. I don't want to hide anymore, Mary said firmly. I'm tired of secrets. If people are going to talk, let them talk. At least now they're talking about the truth. I looked at my daughter, this strong, brave, impossibly wise 15-year-old, and realized she was teaching me something I should have learned years ago. The truth, no matter how messy, is always better than the prettiest lie. Mary just chose truth over comfort, exposure over hiding. The hard road over the easy one. That's courage. Real courage. Not the absence of fear, but walking forward despite it. If this story has taught you something about truth, about courage, about facing what you've been avoiding, share it. Because someone needs this lesson today. and you might be the one who brings it to them. As we packed up Mary's things to leave, she asked one more question. She looked at Frederick, who was folding her blanket with careful, unpracticed hands. "Dad?" she said, testing the word. He looked up immediately. "Why didn't you come sooner?" she asked softly. "Not 15 years ago. I understand that. But 6 months ago. Or a year ago. When you tried to find Mom. Why didn't you try harder?" Frederick set down the blanket, walked over to her. "Because I convinced myself I didn't deserve to," he said. "And I was wrong. I should have fought harder. I should have never stopped looking. I should have put you first instead of my fear." He knelt beside her bed. "But I'm here now," he said. "And I'm never leaving again, not unless you tell me to." Mary threw her arms around his neck, and Frederick held his daughter for the first time. Really held her. While I stood in the corner, crying for everything we'd lost and everything we might still save. This is the moment we've been waiting for, father and daughter, 15 years late, but here, present, real. Chapter 9 is the resolution, the aftermath. The moment this family decides what they become next. Subscribe if you've stayed this long. Turn on notifications if this story has moved you. Because endings matter, and this one will stay with you long after the final word. 3 months later. The cameras eventually went away. Not because the story stopped being interesting, but because Frederick's legal team made it very expensive for anyone to publish photos of Mary without consent. The headlines faded. The gossip moved on to someone else's scandal. The school called 2 weeks after we brought Mary home. Her counselor wanted to check in about the family transition. Code for, "We saw the news and were concerned." I took the meeting. Sat in that small office with motivational posters and listened to carefully worded questions about Mary's adjustment. "She's doing well," I said. "Her father is involved now. It's a good thing." The counselor smiled the way people do when they don't quite believe you, but it was true. For once, it was actually true. And we were left with something far more complicated than fame or shame. We were left with each other. Healing, I learned, doesn't happen in grand gestures. It happens in small, imperfect moments that add up over time. Frederick showed up to Mary's soccer game that first Saturday, sat in the bleachers with the other parents, cheered when she scored, didn't try to make it about him. He showed up the next Saturday too, and the one after that. By the fourth game, Mary waved at him from the field. A small wave. But it meant everything. This is what real change looks like. Not flowers and apologies, not money and promises, just showing up, again and again. Even when it's boring, even when no one's watching. If someone in your life is showing up like this, or if you're trying to be that person, leave a comment. Because consistency is the love language no one talks about. But it's the one that rebuilds trust. Frederick didn't try to buy Mary's love. He could have. God knows he had the resources. But he didn't show up with expensive gifts or lavish trips. He showed up with time. Tuesday night dinners at our small apartment. Mary's choice of restaurant. Helping her with math homework at the kitchen table, both of them arguing over formulas the same stubborn way. Teaching her to drive in an empty parking lot, both of them laughing when she hit the curb. Normal things. Father-daughter things. The things I'd convinced myself she didn't need. I had to learn to let go. And it was harder than I'd imagined. The first time Mary went to Frederick's house for the weekend, I cried the entire first night. Not because I didn't trust him, but because for 15 years, it had just been us, and now I had to share her with someone who had equal claim to her heart. Mary called me that night. "Mom, you okay?" "I'm fine, baby. Having fun?" "Yeah, Dad's trying to make pancakes. They're terrible. But don't tell him I said that." I laughed through tears. "Your secret's safe with me. I love you, Mom. I love you too." After we hung up, I sat in her empty room and realized something. Sharing her didn't mean losing her. It meant she had more people to love her. And that was a gift, not a loss. Sometimes what feels like losing is actually expanding. Virginia thought sharing Mary meant having less of her. But it meant Mary had more love, more support, more people in her corner. If you're struggling to share someone you've held close, hit that like button, because this lesson will set you free. Co-parenting with Frederick was messy. We disagreed about curfews, about screen time, about how much freedom a 15-year-old should have. We had hard conversations in quiet corners of Mary's soccer games. We texted at midnight about things that couldn't wait until morning. We learned each other's parenting styles and tried to find middle ground. It wasn't perfect, but it was working. And slowly, something else started happening. We started remembering why we loved each other in the first place. Virginia and Frederick aren't rushing into anything. They're not falling into each other's arms and pretending the past didn't happen. They're building something new on top of something broken, and that's harder, slower, more real. If you believe love is worth rebuilding, not just finding new, share this video, because second chance love is the bravest kind. One night, 2 months in, Frederick and I were cleaning up after dinner at my apartment. Mary was in her room on a video call with Emma. "She's happy," Frederick said quietly, drying a plate. "She is," I agreed. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For calling me that day at the hospital. I know it cost you, but it gave me everything." I set down the dish I was washing and looked at him. "You gave her everything," I said. "I just finally got out of the way." He smiled. Small, sad. We both got out of our own way. We stood there in my tiny kitchen, and for the first time in 15 years, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. This is what closure looks like. Not fireworks, not dramatic declarations. Just peace. Just two people who hurt each other learning to coexist for someone they both love. If you're seeking peace with someone from your past, stay with me, because this ending shows you it's possible, and it's worth it. Last week, I found myself in the same department store where I'd seen Frederick 3 months ago. Mary needed new cleats. I was browsing the sports section when I wandered past the baby department. And there he was. Again. Holding baby clothes. Again. My heart didn't drop this time. "Hey," I said, walking over. He turned, saw me, smiled. "Hey." Mary texted me her shoe size. "I'm here for backup." "And the baby clothes?" I asked, gesturing to the onesie in his hand. "Foundation donation drive," he said. "We're doing another one next week. NICU families." I looked at the tiny blue onesie, the same one I'd seen him holding months ago, the one that had broken my heart and confirmed all my wrong assumptions. "Can I help?" I asked. He looked surprised. "Really?" "Really, Mary and I can sort donations. She'd like that." "She would," he agreed. We stood there in the baby section, two people who'd built a child together and then spent 15 years apart, now choosing to build something new. Not a romance. Not yet, anyway. Maybe not ever. But a family. Imperfect, complicated, real. Family isn't about biology or history. It's about choice. Every single day, Virginia, Frederick, and Mary are choosing each other, choosing to show up, choosing to forgive, choosing to build. If you believe family is what you make it, leave a comment. Tell me about the family you chose, because those stories inspire us all. As we walked toward the checkout, Frederick carrying baby clothes for children who needed them, me carrying cleats for our daughter, I realized something. That day in the hospital, when the doctor said, "Oh, negative," I thought it was the worst moment of my life. But it wasn't. It was the moment that saved us. Not just Mary's life, but all of ours. Sometimes the worst moments become the best things that ever happened to us. Not because the crisis was good, but because it forced us to face what we'd been avoiding. If you're in a hard moment right now, hold on. You don't know yet what it's building, but trust that something is being built. Subscribe if this story gave you hope. Because that's why we tell these stories, to remind each other that hard seasons end. That night, Mary, Frederick, and I had dinner together at my apartment. Mary told us about her day. A boy had asked her to homecoming. She wasn't sure if she wanted to go. "What do you think?" she asked, looking at both of us. Frederick and I exchanged glances. "I think you should do what feels right," I said. "And tell him if he's anything less than respectful," he answers to me, Frederick added. Mary rolled her eyes. You two are already embarrassing. That's our job, Frederick said with a grin. After dinner, Frederick helped clear the table. Mary hugged him goodbye at the door. See you Thursday? She asked. I'll pick you up after school, he confirmed. She hugged me next. Love you, Mom. Love you too, baby. After she went to her room, Frederick paused at the door. This is good, he said quietly. What we're building. It is, I agreed. I don't know where it goes from here, he admitted, but I'm grateful to be finding out. Me too, I said. He left. And I closed the door on 15 years of pain and opened it to whatever came next. This is where Virginia's story ends, but yours continues. Whatever you're facing, whatever choice you're avoiding, whatever truth you're hiding, this story is your permission to face it, to speak it, to choose courage over comfort. If this story moved you, subscribe, share it, comment below and tell me what choice you're going to make, because we're not just watching stories here, we're living them, together. I walked to Mary's room. She was at her desk, headphones on, doing homework. I knocked. She looked up and pulled one earbud out. Yeah? Just wanted to say goodnight, I said. She smiled. Night, Mom. As I closed her door, I thought about the question she'd asked Frederick months ago in that hospital room. Why didn't you come sooner? The answer, I realized, wasn't about time. It was about choice. We all came when we were ready to choose truth over fear, love over pride, each other over everything else. And that was exactly when we were supposed to arrive. Not a moment sooner, not a moment too late. Just when we finally chose to show up.